glad to be here too.
Just James, I think it's a dog.
Let's get the clock. Alright, you all ready? Alright, waiting for him.
Which the bigger jurisdictions. Emily, the first thing, attorney they've had.
Okay, you all ready?
Usually they call it.
Are we
Yeah, they usually have a conflict.
on? Is that muted?
It's blinking now.
Okay. Yeah.
Alright. Okay. You all ready? You all ready? Good to go? Oh, well, okay.
I just left you a message on machine, so.
No
Or you
worries.
have to- Thank you for leaving these on here each time for the meeting. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Yes.
Yeah, no worries.
I think of them later, and so, thank you.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Alrighty, you all ready? Okay. The meeting will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, so we'll have the roll call
Okay, Nina Beasley,
here.
Cindy Bessie,
Here.
Greg Metzger.
Here.
For the record, Chris Close and Ken Boleski are absent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the first action item is we have the approval of the September 17th, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to those minutes? I have one, and it's on the first page under where it says open the public hearing, and it says ex porta communication, but it should say parte. P-A-R-T-E. Yeah, but it just needs a correction there, but that's it. Alrighty, so is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2025 regular meeting.
I second that. Okay,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Alright, motion passes. The second action item is approval of the October 1st, 2025 special meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the October 1st, 2025 special meeting.
And second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you second or did you second?
I did.
Nina, thank you.
Okay, so motion passes. All right. We will now, the next action item is consideration of the Solera preliminary long plat. Sorry about that, 1 second. So we'll open the public hearing. Following the public hearing, the commission will consider all relevant evidence and legal criteria stated in the Ratcham City Code and give its recommendation. Are there any conflicts of interest, site visits, ex parte actions, or bias that any of you need to put on the record?
No.
I don't think so, no.
Seeing none. Ex parte actions include any receipt or reading of information related to this land use action from any source other than this public hearing, and also includes any social media posts or interactions related to this land use action. So is there any member of the audience who wishes to challenge the participation of any commissioner based on the appearance of fairness grounds? All right, seeing none. The hearing will proceed as follows. Staff will introduce the application with a brief overview. The applicant will present their application. Staff will present their report. The members of the public will, pardon me, have the opportunity to testify, starting with those in favor, then neutral, then those opposed. If you'd like to speak, you must sign in, including your address, on one of the public hearing comment sheets and provide the sheet to me or staff. When your name is called, please approach the microphone and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Comments should be addressed to the commission, be relevant to the information in the record and the applicable legal criteria that the commission will be considering for this application, and it should not be personally derogatory or repetitive. Public comment will not be accepted out of order from seated members of the public or after the hearing is closed, so please make sure that you speak during your time provided, if so motivated. Following the public testimony, the applicant will have a chance for rebuttal. Does anybody in the audience have any questions about these rules? Okay, seeing none, staff will introduce the application with a brief overview.
Hold on, if I can get it open. Members of the commission, this public hearing is in regards to Solera preliminary long plat. The applicant is Hayden Homes. They do have JB Engineers as their agent, and the owner of the property is the Ragnar Aristad Living Trust. We have seen this property before it was rezoned, which finished up last January. It is the property located at the southeast corner of Baker and Meyer. There's 33 approximate acres of industrial and about 124 acres of property in there that is zoned MR. I'm going to let Sabrina Minchell from Hayden Homes take it from here. Oops.
Still always have to go down, make sure. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners.
Hold on, I gotta get it up there.
Hold on.
Hold on, I got problems.
Thank you. I picked the
There we go.
effective one.
Good, okay. Chairman and Commissioners, I am still Sabrina Menshaw. I am a Forward Planning Manager with Hayden Homes. Our address is 23403 East Mission Avenue in Liberty Lake.
That's okay.
Is our North Idaho office.
It's okay.
I'm glad to be here to talk about the preliminary plat for Solara. We're gonna give an overview, I'm gonna introduce our team, and then we'll have a chance for any questions afterwards. Also with us, as James mentioned, is our JUB engineers that are here local. Brad Marshall's a project manager, and Cole Henderson. Also have Alyssa, who's our community engagement government affairs person, and Michelle Fulgrim, who is our legal counsel in case there's questions that I should not speed on and answer. So if we get to those technical ones, we'll make sure our engineer can answer them. I really also want to appreciate your time. I know this is a very large packet with a lot of information, just the development agreement itself, but I'm sure was a lot to read. So I wanted to thank you and think that you're really looking at these things thoroughly from the time that we submitted our first application through. Also want to thank the public. We received some really good feedback, and there's been a lot of interest. So that's a really good reflection of an engaged community when you have folks before a project is built asking questions and wanting to be engaged. I don't have a clicker, sorry. Slide, please. Okay. Thank you. You have seen us before. I know this is my first time in front of you, but for some of the public or new commissioner, I just want to give you a bit about Hayden Homes and what we're doing here in Rathdrum. We're a private regional home builder. We build in Idaho, portions of Washington, Oregon, and we're actually in Montana now. And we also do have some in Washington. We've built over 27,000 homes, primarily again in the Northwest, and we already built about 600 here in Rathdrum. So Rathdrum is not new to us. We're not just now coming into your community. We've been a community and a community partner for quite a while here. We really do believe in being a community partner. Our team is engaged, we volunteer in opportunities, we do community grants. We also have a great First Story nonprofit that was established in 1998. It provides home ownership opportunities for resource families that can't quite make it through the normal financing process. And so those are all things that we do, and those include zero down, zero interest loans, and there's an application process for that. We've been engaged through PAHA, which is your Panhandle area, on affordable housing. These are things that we care deeply about, and we indicate that from our giving all the year round. Next slide, please. So our proposed project in front of you tonight, I'm going to give you an overview. It's been a while since, I guess, some of you have seen this. It was last December.
Can we make the screen to where it's the full and
Oh,
not looking?
we're trying.
Okay. Thank you.
So it was last December when we first came in front of you about the rezone. So I'm just to do some little bit of familiarity with it just for everybody who may be looking at it. As James mentioned, it's a 157 acre site. It is already in the city of Rathdrum in the southeast corners of Bakel and Meyer. It was rezoned in June. The bottom 124 acres. So I think that's important to note, is that's been kind of one of the areas of misinformation perhaps, is the entire area was not rezoned. We are retaining the top section of that as industrial. And in Rathdrum City Code, that also means commercial uses can be done under that industrial designation. What we're bringing to you today, the long plat, is platting both that industrial land and the residential land. Part of why we did that is by platting that industrial development, it actually is more attractive for commercial or industrial developments, because they're not starting from scratch. They have the ability that the lots are already there, it's already entitled for those processes, and it will help you attract and retain those businesses, commercial and industrial. The best situation for anybody is if you can live and work in your own community. Less traffic on the road, more opportunities. This does both. It is not rezoning the entire, rezone did not rezone the entire project. Also just mentioning, and you're gonna hear this a few times here, both by myself and staff, there is a development agreement, we'll call it a DA as a terminology, that was approved and recorded in July. That was memorializing those commitments that Hayden Homes made to the city and the community that were discussed during that rezone process. Many of those things that are in the development agreement may have actually in a normal process that have been maybe a smaller subdivision would be discussed here as part of the preliminary plat. And that's why you'll see like a standard condition that says the developer will enter into a development agreement. Because of some of the comments you guys made from the beginning back there in December, and the need to really look and analyze that, much of that work was done early. So you're gonna see throughout this presentation, we're gonna talk about what commitments have been made that address things that are actually also preliminary plat related. They've already been addressed, there's things that we've committed to and we're contractually bound to. So if there's questions that come up with that, let us know, but we're gonna talk about a couple of those. I also just want to mention, and then I'll talk about here in this slide, is that this is intended to be developed over several years. This is not going to be in 1 year going to turn around and there's going to be over 400 homes. You're going to see the phasing plan. You're going to see that this is going to be a phased development. It's also, as we get moving in here, it's also going to be clear that they're single family homes. They're detached. These are not apartment complexes. These are not duplexes or triplexes. These are single family homes. So on this slide, I wanted to be able to show you a bit and show the public where we've been and where we're going in the process. So the rezone and the development agreement started when we submitted our application, actually about a year ago. December was when you saw the commission hearing. There were 2 city council hearings, public hearings and meetings. And then again in July, the city council approved the development agreement that memorialized their decision that was in June. That rezone, it provided for what are the allowable uses in this area. Again, rezoning that bottom up about 2/3. The rezone sets what can you do with the property, what's the density that you can do with the property, and how does that work in terms of the city's comprehensive plan and code. You have to make sure those things are consistent. The preliminary plat, which we're here to talk about today, is actually about how do you subdivide the land? How do you make sure that we are meeting all the criteria and the procedures are followed to actually do the division process. And I like to just kind of slow down and remember that sometimes because land use does take a long time. And it's that way intentionally because you want to make sure those issues are vetted out. And you really have kind of 2 separate processes of that rezone. What can you do with the land? And then how does that land then get divided to make sure it's in compliance with local and state codes? So I put in black, now that we're full screen, everybody can see it. These are the things that have already occurred. We're in green, so October 15th, the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, which is on the preliminary plat. It does require still a city council meeting before that would be approved after your recommendation. And then at that point, we start doing detailed construction drawings and then be able to start site development, even if that may be just plowing snow in January here. We'll start that site development in that spring and then home construction. With this schedule, we wouldn't be expected to see that home construction until late summer, early fall, a year from now, with homeowner occupancy in January, February of 2027. We also are estimating through the phases that you wouldn't see the neighborhood completed or completely built out until fall of 2032. We say estimated because the market has some drive on that, sales pace has some drive on that. A lot of things we don't know, but that is kind of our estimated pace that you're gonna see in the phases. It's gonna take a bit of time for us to get that. I also just wanted to note the difference in these two processes because the approval criteria is different. The criteria to be able to say we wanna change what the land is gonna be used for and what the density is different than how do you actually subdivide it and break up the land to make sure you're consistent with codes. And we're gonna talk more about that. Awesome, thank you. All right, so preliminary plat, let's get into a bit more of the details. I'm gonna just highlight some pieces over this. This is all on the website. First of all, the proposed preliminary plat is consistent with the rezone that has occurred. Again, you're gonna hear it over and over. We have a development agreement that covers that. You'll see up at the top that industrial land is broken into 21 industrial lots or assumed 2 phases. It's important again that we're platting that together because by platting then it'd be able to speed up the process to be able to attract more people who are gonna invest in that commercial and industrial uses. As we've heard through many of the comments, building jobs, building the tax base, sharing your tax base with more than just residential. What we're also proposing in this plat is 436 residential building lots in 10 phases, which are the dark black dotted lines. It's important to note that when I say they're consistent with the zoning action that was taken, this is an interesting zoning process. I've been a land use planner for over 25 years, mostly in public sector. And it was actually really fun as a planner to see how this came together of its implementing what was done in the zoning. And by that, I mean, this is a mixed residential zone that was approved. It's not one zone that has lots 6,500 to 7,500. It's not one zone that has R1 that's lots over 10,000. It's actually split up by your city code, again memorialized in our development agreement, that they are to be split roughly equally. It's like at least, no more than, those 3 zones. So there's a certain amount, a third, and you can see that chart in the bottom, of lots that are in R3, which are your 6,500 to about 7,500, R2, which is that 7,500 to 10,000, and then R1, which is 10,000 square feet and above. Also interesting, when I say as a planner I get excited about these site designs, is one of the provisions that City Council had that is reflected in the development agreement is that within each phase, there's also a variety of those lot sizes. So in some traditional subdivisions, you may see a section of the subdivision that are really small lots, and then you may have a section of the subdivisions that are really big lots. That's not how this is designed, nor is that what the mixed residential zoning had. City Council ensured through the development agreement that in each of those zones, we have a mix of lot sizes. One of the things that does for people who are interested in the subdivision is it gives you a variety of interest groups. We may be downsizing and ready not to have a big yard. We may want a smaller lot. However, if my kids and my grandkids were coming to the neighborhood, they may want a larger lot and a larger home. Both can occur within each phase, so that you're not having to wait 3 or 4 years to be able to get to what might be the larger or smaller lots. They're really mixed in. One of the other things I think is a benefit of that mixture is you'll actually see product differences. And I'm gonna show you some pictures of that. You're not gonna see all houses that look the same size on the same lots because different housing products fit on different size lots. So you'll be able to see that, and so it really shows you that. You can see the color coding is actually related to that R1, R2, R3. And in addition, we tried really hard as we were designing this, probably pulling out our poor engineer's hair to keep going back and saying we don't want to have in very rare circumstances, more than 2 next to each other of the same size zoning, so that we get that good variety of what the houses also look like, both from the front and the back. Talk about each phase and each size, varied designs. Again, you see the phasing plan. It starts in the bottom left corner and wraps around in a horseshoe to phase 10 in the right corner on the bottom. Most of that follows how we would build the infrastructure and how we would connect to sewer and water. So it's built that way intentionally to be able to reflect how that infrastructure goes in, so that you don't have running extra lines that you have to change and move around. And it also then disturbs less of the land and keeps it ag as that's being built around into those subdivisions, because it is a large site. All right, so the next one I'm gonna ask us to go to is, we've zoomed in here. So these are all in what's online in the plat, but what I've done is I zoomed into that bottom left corner, which is phase 1 and part of phase 2. Why I wanted to do that is just so you can see in more detail. These are the plan sheets that show you, yes, there's color coding for lots R1, R2, R3 zoning, but within those, how does that look when you start getting into square footage of lots? So now you can start to see that you're getting some smaller square footage of lots, the minimum of which was 6,500, all the way up in some areas of these kind of corner lot, big lots, up into over 12,000 square feet, which is almost 1/3 of an acre. You see those built that way intentionally within each phase. Just wanted to zoom in. The other thing you see here and how it's designed to meet the city code, we've also gone additional and made all of these lots are standard 116 depth. Usually what we're seeing for our lots in many other places, and even ones we've done here, are closer to that 100 about depth. This gives some extra depth so that people can have those bigger backyards, as well as you're getting more spacing. When you have 2 lots building up against each other, the homes are closer to the front. Hayden Homes tries to place its homes as far to the front of the lot as possible. There is a 25-foot requirement to garage. We kind of try to get as close to that frontage as possible, so you get that separation between the homes and people get more of that yard space. I just point that out so that you can actually zoom in and say, what do these pictures look like and what does it actually mean to me with those square footages? I also like to see this because it helps you just know how you're implementing that zoning of the 3 different areas. So this is a slide that I wanted to be able to show you, well, what does this mean, right? So zoning kind of feels a little nebulous at times. What is this gonna look out to be? So we've shown you kind of the big picture of how they mix together. We've zoomed in to show you what that looks like on a smaller scale. This shows you an example of each of those zonings, again, by kind of square footage of lot generally. We do lot fits and say which of our products, based upon how wide they are, can fit in different kinds of lots. So on the far left side, those are the smaller square footage of homes. They're skinnier. You still can get 2-story homes, but they're gonna be a more narrow design with maybe a little bit more depth. 2-car garages. The middle of those really can fit between 7,500 to 10,000 square feet. Do have 2 and 3 car options. Many times a 3-car option, we're already having to do the bigger lot size to make sure we have the width for it. For example, I live in a home, what's called the Snowbrush. It's the middle one in the top. We have a 2-car garage. We wouldn't be able to get a 3rd-car garage because of side setbacks, which also are different depending on the zoning, unless we were on a larger lot. That would be the same situation here. It just shows you that there's a mix of who the people are that are going to be coming into the homes, what are they looking for, and how do we be able to give a nice variety of what those homes are based upon the size. I'll come back and see if you have any questions related to this, but we did want to be able to show the community what does this look like when it starts getting implemented, because that's really what the subdivision and the planning process is about, is now that those decisions are memorialized, what does the development agreement mean when you move forward? All right, staff's gonna probably go through this in more detail, and James has a really good chart in your staff report you can read that has a lot of very specific code language of what the requirements are. Again, the criteria for plat approval from the city code. Mentioning that it's still very different than what that rezone criteria was that we were here talking about a year ago. I broke it down into just kind of general language, and we're gonna talk about all of these and then come back to them. First of all is the lot size and width have to match that approved zoning. That's why I spent time just now in your presentation and in your pictures showing you that indeed we meet that MR zoning, which is that mix of R1, R2, R3. And actually, in addition, the development agreement actually covers how that works in each phase. So we match those. We also have to make sure we can show water supply, wastewater treatment available, and then what improvements might be needed to both serve our subdivision and make the improvements to mitigate any issues within the area. We're gonna show you those. By state law, there has to be access to each lot provided. There will not be any direct access on any of the arterials. These are all local road access, so that we try to keep that off of where the traffic is. And then the last one, and there's additional ones of these that James has covered by citing code, but you have to make sure that you're checking all the boxes from a technical assessment of, are all the streets right? Do they have the right cross section? Is drainage provided on site, and how are you gonna handle that? Where do you have open space? How do you have fire protections and hydrants? As well as any other public and private improvements that are required by code. Those have to be listed out, and that's why you have such a longer page plat, is you have to show each of those. These criteria are different, but it's really based upon the early technical work and the questions that you and the community asked to ensure that that analysis has been done and covered. We're gonna have more details here in a minute, but we are not asking for any variances from code or any deviations at all. We're meeting all the aspects of the code with this preliminary plat. All right, so high level of the development agreement. It's in your packet, it's posted on the website. There is substantial work done on it through the public hearing process and through the technical analysis and collaboration back and forth with versions prior to this being signed. It was approved by the city council and recorded. You'll hear me keep calling it a DA, so I try to put development agreement back. It is a detailed contract, and it covers those terms that sometimes actually are covered, and you'll see in the standard condition, said you need a development after preliminary plat. We did that early so the community could be assured and city council could be assured that those issues are covered before we went to actually subdivide the land. It uses that technical analysis, you identify the potential impacts, and then you make sure that they're sufficiently addressed. In blue, I wrote down some of the major categories in that development agreement. It's no, I means all of them. There are some really detailed city standards, but it memorializes what's code compliant and what is the commitments to that mitigation. I have a slide coming up in a minute about traffic, so I'm not gonna go through those details, but again, it goes back to rezone compliance. Did you implement that MR zone the way that city council said you have to implement it and it meets code? And it also covers the timing of the permits from when industrial has to happen to when residential has to happen. It's got mitigations for the traffic impact study, which I have a slide on here in a minute, which I know y'all had questions about, as well as the contribution to the city program intersection that's actually an existing deficiency. It's gonna cover street landscaping standards, irrigation and drainage. Those water and sewer improvements are covered in there, as well as a voluntary commitment for a percentage of our homes to make sure that we're covering some workforce housing through relationship with Lakeland School District. So all of that is covered in there, but I wanted to make sure that you and the public knew these are the categories that are in there and not just reference it generally. All right, next slide. So we're gonna have a few public infrastructure slides here as an overview. Transportation is the one that I usually start with. A transportation impact study, sometimes it's called traffic impact study. It was completed after we came here in December, and it was based to make sure that prior to preliminary plat application, what were those improvements, what was the mitigation? It also took a look at what are your existing deficiencies, and then how do these improvements align with the master transportation plan or capital plan. So the Lancaster and Meyer intersection is actually it's an existing deficiency. So even without our subdivision, that needs to be done. And so Hayden Homes, through our contract, has agreed to up to 10% of the cost of that development or up to $150,000 for that intersection, because we recognize how important it is to get that intersection done. And although it's programmed by the city, it is important to us as well. Again, not directly related because of just our development. It was already programmed to be done. The other items that are listed there were ones that the technical assessment, you have a full traffic impact study in your packet. It's where it said, these are going to be affected by the traffic that your development is creating. So we have to look at it and say, all right, we're creating impacts to that. What improvements need to be done? When do they need to be done based upon those homes? And then what does that look like aligned with the city's plans? That information is in there. We have detailed cross sections if you want to see them, but they are again in your preliminary plat documents. It also covers things in the traffic impact about frontage improvements, which in Rathdrum City Code means you're actually widening to whatever the capital improvement plan says, at least to a half section. So you're getting developers to be able to pay for some of those improvements that are being needed. Has site individual lot access, and then it also talks about where we're extending roadways. I I think an important part of where we're extending roadways to is that mid-mile collector through the middle of the site. It actually has pathways, pedestrian bicycle buffering on each side. It really allows essentially the public to get through the middle of the area without having to be on your arterials, and that's a pretty important improvement. Let's see, I think that's it there. So public infrastructure, hit on a couple others. Sanitary sewer, it is already adjacent to the site. Remember, this has already been in the city limits. The preliminary plat already identifies those extensions and improvements, so you'll see where those are listed out. The 10-inch sewer main in Bagel, it will get an upgrade to a 12-inch sewer main, and then the sewer main will also be extended in Nagel Road. So we're doing that extension of what's in the capital improvement plan because the site's being developed. Stormwater runoff by state law and city code, it has to be retained and treated on site. You'll see the straight cross sections, they illustrate the swales, how we're being treated to help with aquifer protection so that you're not getting that to run into untreated areas. So for water, and I know there's been a lot of discussion and concern in Rathdrum with water. I'm gonna point yourselves and the public to, there's an October 7th memo from the city engineer to update and be clear that there is sufficient water supply and pressure for the development of the site. Part of the reason for that on this site is the water mains are already locally identified. It's well situated by those existing wells. Your plat actually already identifies where the fire hydrants go, where the water lines get extended, how they get extended through the subdivision, the transmission main along Hiawatha, and the water main through the center development. It runs from south to north. That actually improves water circulation and water pressure throughout that area of town, beyond just the site. So when you get that looping of a system and you're adding those additional lines and upgrading, you actually will improve the water pressure. So thought that was pretty important to have. Our city engineer is here, we can show you if you want to see those, but on your plat, you're going to see where the hydrants are located and where it's showing the sewer and water connections. And then it looks like your public works director can also address that if there's questions off of the city engineer's letter. We're almost there. There we go. All right, so just going to highlight these again. I guess I'm giving a softball over here to James to do his staff report. We talked about lot size and width, that it has to match that approved zoning, which is that MR zone. Talked about water supply, your engineer and the technical has looked at that, wastewater treatment available, what would it be and how it would be covered. You see direct access and transportation improvements, and then all the provisions of the detailed specs for streets, drainage, open space, fire protection, and other public and private improvements have to be outlined through that, and they are. And that's why you see compliance with city code. So I guess to the next is just, these are in accordance with the terms of the development agreement. Go ahead and change to the next slide, please. So what we're asking for today is to request your recommendation of approval for that preliminary plat in accordance with the terms of the development agreement where the details are all outlined and we're contractually bound because it addresses that required infrastructure and mitigation. We are not asking for any variances or deviations. It is a strict compliance with the city code and state law. And also agencies having jurisdiction. As you're aware, we have to make sure we comply with the fire district, even though that's not the city. Health district concerns. There's a lot of agencies that have jurisdiction. They're also covered over it. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions now, or we can also answer them at rebuttal if you have them. I do ask to reserve the right, Madam Chair, that if you have a really technical engineering question, we have staff here from our engineering firm that can answer it, and we have some additional displays in our PowerPoint if you need them.
All right.
I need my next slide. There we go, questions. All right, thank you. Just again, reiterating at Hayden Homes, this is our why, it's our mission statement. We exist to give as you go, we give as we go. Together we build strong communities and live fulfilled lives. It's something we actually say at the beginning of all of our meetings, so it's important to us.
Thank you. Awesome.
Questions at this point?
Just one, I mean,
Sure.
you referenced from the front of the homes, and I didn't look into it too much about the backing of the homes. I mean, what's the footage from there? The front is typically 25. Has anything been adjusted for any of the lots, the smaller lots? Are they less than 20 feet to the back of the property lines, or are they all?
No, there's a single set of setbacks for the entire MR zone. It doesn't change by lot size. It's
Okay.
the same across the board.
Okay.
All right, so to answer directly for this, it's a minimum of 25 feet from the front, and the setback's actually 20, but the provision of code is you have to be 25 to the garage.
Yeah.
Most times the garages are in front.
Yeah.
The rear setback is the same across all the codes, which is 15 feet as a minimum. But the 116 feet lots, none of our product steps or that, you're getting way more than that behind. That's a minimum that the city code requires. It's the side lot setbacks, which may vary.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
No, I thought it was always 20. That's why I wasn't sure. To the back of the lots, I thought it was 20. You just said 15, right?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, can you verify
I
15, 20?
can maybe pull some up and see.
Okay, we'll verify. My understanding is in 15. I would say that none of our houses are gonna be that close. They're much, they're not as deep as that, and again, they're 116 feet long. So there's gonna be much more space with that.
I have a
You
question.
would think I would know this off the top of my head.
Well, now you made me nervous that I thought what I had was not the same in my head. Madam Chair.
So, you said in January 2027 will be the first home occupancy. How many homes will that be at that time?
Could you go back to the one with the color coding, please?
Maybe.
I'll raise my hand if we get there.
I don't know why it's not changing on the screen.
Do you have the actual numbers big enough?
I have a file.
I'm getting where I can't see
No
that
worries.
small in my.
Yeah, it's
my
all right.
hand. Oh, here we go. That's okay. I can read it from here. So, the phase 1 is a total of 42. Phase 2 is a total of 53. Typically, we start with one phase of residential. At most, you may start phase 1 and then begin phase 2 closely after if you have a really, pace of sales that are a lot. But usually it'd be somewhere between that 42 and 50. So between 42 and 92,
So
depending on phases.
So in January of 2027, it'll have the first home occupancy, and that should be roughly 42 homes.
Well, not all at once, right? So we phase 1 through. So we're in phase 1. We have site development. We start building the homes. So we'll do some homes that are already built, some are custom built. So you don't have all of a sudden all 42.
So
are gonna show
over
up
the
at same time.
that are you? So like you might have one home being occupied, but many are being built at the same time.
Potentially,
So first home
right,
occupancy, and then in 2028, is it expected that there would be, is like that the starting of another 53, or that it will already have that at the end of 2028 an additional 53?
Sure. Madam Chair, Commissioners, somewhere probably between those two things.
Okay.
It is an expected phasing. So again, it depends on how fast sales are, how the construction season goes. Do you have a long winter here? That can affect construction paces. But we do start one phase, and then we'll start the next phase to make sure we still have a supply coming through. Phases are generally a year, but we've kind of given you some ranges, knowing that sometimes it might be 1 to 2 phases that are happening within a year.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying though in 2027, when it says first home occupancy, is it expected that it would? You're saying that it wouldn't be like all 42 at that time. It's going to be probably staggered throughout
Correct.
that year.
Correct.
As
Correct.
well as the subsequent year, it will be somewhat staggered.
Correct. Just think about as you see a subdivision go up, you're gonna have a few kind of models to start with. People might buy existing inventory. They may be doing custom builds, which is gonna, or not custom builds, but like build their home and picking their own options. That could take longer. So it's really just pacing depending on what the market does, and how many. But I've never seen it doesn't you wake up one morning and there's all 42.
Right.
We just don't even have that manpower with local trades to be able to do that. So it does kind of ease itself through. I would say that I think January 27th is probably the most aggressive, but we were trying to be fair, because we know we're not gonna be moving dirt in January of a year from now, right? It's snow. So kind of given some general times.
All right. Thank you. You have any other questions?
I think that was it, yeah.
Okay, most of your technical code will be covered by James, but we can certainly answer more questions when we get to the rebuttal if questions from yourself or the public come up.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the staff will present their report.
My slideshow is a lot shorter,
Because I covered it.
but now it's not there anymore. Hang on. I do not know what's going on with the screen. Anyway, so we've identified the property already, 33 acres of industrial, 123 of MR zoning. That rezone was accomplished early this year with the development agreement, as Sabrina mentioned, covering a lot of stuff that would normally be covered at this stage of development, not at a rezone. So it is kind of odd that road improvements were discussed at rezone or even codified in a development agreement. It's really, really bizarre that that was done at that stage of the development. What I really want to focus on is the requirements for approval for a preliminary plat. This is found in Raccoon City Code 12317. A, the proposed lots must meet all established lot size and width requirements. As we see here in this slide by color coding, yes indeed they do. They meet the requirements set forth by the zone and the additional requirements of the mixed zoning placed in that development agreement by council this last July. B, adequate water supply and sewage disposal are available as the date of the plat approval as determined by the city engineer. The city engineer did provide us with a memo stating that both of those are available to the property and they are adequate at this time. However, because I know that has not been addressed while traffic has, I brought the city's public works director to come answer all of your questions about water and water pressure. So let me move right through this and I'll hand it over to him and you can ask your questions. Okay, all proposed lots but improved existing and maintained public street. If we go back here, we can see that every single lot has a street frontage. We see railway going right up through the middle of the property. There is no direct access allowed, so you see those lots on both sides actually access collector streets to the left and right of that. The proposal includes appropriate provisions for streets, drainage, alleys, and other public ways, open space, fire protection, and all other appropriate public and private improvements. And certainly it does. This proposal has been reviewed by myself as city planner and by Kevin Jump, the city engineer, and it does meet all of the requirements set forth in city code for a preliminary plat. And then finally, subdivisions that contain frontage to rights of way that are exterior to the plat shall provide at least a 10-foot landscape buffer. If we go back to their plat, you can see that they even put them on railway, which is internal to the plat. And we do see them on Meyer at the left-hand side and on Hiawatha on the right-hand side. They're kind of hard to see because they're only 10-foot wide buffer tracks, but they do exist there. They also put a 40-foot buffer between the residential and the industrial parcels, as well as those green space parcels that you see all over the place in the plat. So that is all I've got. Chris?
I have a question for Chris.
Okay.
So it says that it was the Rathdrum Hayden Homes Aristod Property Development Traffic Impact Study. It included an 2.6 water, and it said per the city engineer September 12, 2024 email, there is sufficient water supply and pressure for the future development of the area. And so how do you determine if there's sufficient water supply and pressure?
Madam Chair, from the supply side, we are currently almost 2 million gallons under our maximum capacity for our daily pumpage. Our average, or our calculated capacity is about 10 million gallons. As high as we hit was 8.4 this year. The problem that we run into on the pressure side is the way our system is laid out with the growth. Most of our wells are our main well is in the corner of one town, and then we actually have 2 wells on Meyer Road itself, one directly across from that just north of Nagel, and then another one basically it's like a lot in from Majestic. And so what you have happen in peak demand is we can't run those wells at full capacity because we're ending up over pressurizing the middle of town because we have a hydraulic grade break across town. So like Brookshire is lower, then you come across Meyer, and then it drops down again around Pine Street and then pushes up to the reservoir. So the pressure is something that with this, it will create the interconnectivity that should increase the efficiency of our pumping and should equalize the pressure a little bit. I have not looked at the modeling JUB Engineering is currently working on our master plan for us. And I know that we did add a request from them to get additional data from Brookshire and from the subdivision across Lancaster to address any of those concerns.
So do they do a water study, or how do they?
They're in the middle of the water study. Yeah, so basically we have gone around with them and we have done fire flow testing, they have pressure sensors around town. And then because of some of the questions that were being raised about Brookshire specifically, the city engineer reached out to our counterparts at JUB and we added pressure monitors for a couple of weeks on each side, just to get a good, accurate view of what's happening. And so that was part of the determining factor of, going forward, what we're going to do at that intersection.
So do you also answer questions regarding traffic? Or is
Not
that
so
James
good on the
that I need to
traffic
ask
side.
you?
That's not so much me either, but shoot.
Okay, so if you go back also in the same Rathdrum Hayden Homes or Aristod Property Development Traffic Impact Study, in the recommendations, because there were some issues of the level of service falling below D, which is the Rathdrum's required level of service.
Adopted level of service.
Adopted level
Not
of service.
required.
Okay, well, adopted level of service. And so, you have the Lancaster Road and Meyer Road. One question I had there is it said, Rathdrum's 2022 capital improvement program update and a roundabout is planned at that location for the Lancaster Road and Meyer Road. Southbound approach when do you think that roundabout will be
I
put in?
am not sure what Kevin's capital improvement plan, when that will begin. I believe, do you know, Cole?
I can speak to
Uh-huh.
that. Cole Henderson with JUB Engineers, the project engineer with this development. So I know in the other, we had folks in our office that did the traffic impact study, so I know at the Lancaster and Meyer, that is a planned roundabout, and they're in the middle of design right now, so the city has contracts with, I think it's Lakeside Engineers and whatnot, so it's a different engineering firm that's going through the designs currently right now. So that was already planned, and so there is a small impact that, there's a little bit more traffic that's generated from this site. So although it's not needed because it's already planned improvements to be done by the city, Hayden Homes came out and said we would, contribute a proportionate share of that.
So
that's-
is it going to be in, 2026, 2027? Like, do you have is there a
Yeah.
timeline of
It's
knowing?
within the next few years, so it's currently being designed, so I'm not sure, I can't tell you exactly. I know it's been on the council agendas and whatnot for the timeline. I wanna say it's being designed now. Would it be constructed in 2026 or 2027? I'm not quite sure,
Uh-huh.
but I think it's probably either 2026 or 2027.
We think 26, they're already doing utility work.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I
And
think
then
that's
there-
coming shortly.
And there was also the Nagel Lane Meyer Road, and then the Lancaster Road Railway Avenue that also fell below the level of service D. It was a level of service E. Do you have an idea of when those will be completed?
I can speak to that, yeah. So all of there was a hand, so then, the first one you said was that the Nagel and Meyer
Uh-huh.
intersection. So that level of service, what we said for mitigation, that will happen during phase one, because that's right adjacent to that intersection in phase one. So we'll add a right turn lane for southbound traffic to turn a right onto Nagel, and that takes a certain amount of traffic off of that, to get them to a correct level of service. So those improvements will be done along with the adjacent frontage improvements, and that's in our development agreement, so that's binding. We will be required to do that. Kevin Jump will make sure when we submit plans, we have those improvements in those plans.
Right.
So that takes care of that one. What was the next one?
It was the Lancaster Road Railway Avenue.
And so that,
Yeah.
the intersection of Lancaster and Railway? Okay, yeah, that's right. So we did, it's a pretty similar one, so that's kind of to the south. I know we had it in our presentation, we kind of showed an exhibit that shows a couple of those. But I think it's just another right turn pocket that would be needed it to take a certain amount of cars that are going eastbound
Mhm.
off of that right, and then that would improve that level of service.
Right.
So that will be handled, and there's, in the development agreement, it talks about before a certain number of homes are constructed, that improvement will be justified.
Yeah, and that was one of my questions is, in the last paragraph of the traffic impact study, it said a sensitivity analysis was performed to determine how many lots can be built out before the mitigation improvements are required. Analysis showed that all the industrial zone, 100% plus 400 residential lots, 85% can be built out before mitigation at Nagel Lane, Meyer Road, and Lancaster Road, Railway Avenue are needed. And so my question was, if it is already below the acceptable level of service, how is it possible that 85% can be built out before mitigation is needed?
The only one that is at a below level of service is Lancaster and Meyer.
Mhm.
And so that one is in our development agreement. It's not at the 400th. I'd have to double check the development agreement exactly when we state for that,
Right.
that percentage cost to be paid. But I know for the intersection at Lancaster and Railway, I think that one is at the 400th home, because that's when the level of service, that analysis we said, that's when it does trip that level of service. So that's when, at that point, that would need to be paid
Right.
or improved,
Okay.
so.
Thank you. Well, and I do know that traffic is a major issue, even just driving the cars down, going, I would say Meyer and Hayden intersections, Lancaster and Hutter and Hayden. Like sometimes it's during peak traffic times, it's like a 40-minute wait with the cars lined up all the way down there. Like I've had to turn around to go back the other way to go all the way down 41. And so it's pretty much a nightmare. So I did a little investigation and I asked KMPO when some of those things would be completed, and they said that the Post Falls.
We're gonna be careful, if you're
Yeah.
asking a different agency and presenting it as evidence, and the other members of the
Right.
board did not
Okay.
have that opportunity, it would be ex parte.
Oh, okay. Well, I did ask when they were going to be completed because I was concerned that the timeline of when all of these would be completed, and because traffic is a huge issue. Like I can tell you how many times I hear other people talk about traffic as well as myself. And so I wanted to find out, hey, when are some of these roundabouts going to be completed? So 2000, like some of them are, they said within the next year, some within the next 2028. And so again, I just wanted to be able to put those timelines together, and even just for the public to know
Again,
that,
if
yeah.
you're reaching out and collecting evidence and then presenting it here, you
Right.
shouldn't be.
Okay, well, that was the time I thought you're
But
supposed to.
We're still
is-
doing it,
Right. Yeah, well, because everybody here can hear the same
It's-
information.
except you got it outside.
Okay.
You're not supposed to get evidence outside.
Well,
But let's continue on.
okay, well, anybody in the public can call KMPO and say, hey, when are your roundabouts gonna
Yes,
be
they
done?
are not the chair of this body and presenting it in a public hearing.
Okay. So, well, I just wanted to know that that was a major concern regarding, because traffic is one of the requirements for saying yes or no to this particular thing.
No, it is not.
Well, traffic has been previously one of
I
the
showed
things that
you
we've
the
been able to say
criteria.
no.
Traffic is
Yeah.
not one of them.
Well, that previously water and sewer.
Water and
traffic.
sewer are availability.
Okay,
Traffic is not one of the criteria.
okay. Well, I just wanted to bring up that is a major concern, is being able to provide, again, mitigating that. And that's why I asked the questions regarding the traffic study and what was going on there, and to find out when those timelines would be, because obviously it's definitely a burden in our community. And if there's an influx of homes, and again, you all have a great 10-phase plan for that, so that makes sure that things are flowing without causing too much burden on traffic, because there's definitely a huge burden on traffic, so.
Madam Chair, we totally understand, and,
Yeah.
the Hayden Homes team reached out to JEB early on when they heard the concerns a while ago with the rezone, and that's why they kind of hit pause on this and said, hey, let's do a traffic impact study from the very
Right.
get-go instead of doing this kind of after the fact. So we made sure we had an extensive report, kind of diving into all of these mitigation items. We have a handful that we're going to be jumping out and doing to make sure before we have a level of service, at what point are those triggered, and we need to make sure these are addressed. So, you know, I can let Hayden Homes kind of speak to that, but they have jumped out and kind of done that preemptively to make sure, you know, we're trying to mitigate the traffic as best we can. So.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Let me go back to the water lines quick. So we were talking about, you know, doing this loop for the 12-inch line through to be able to get through there, and we're saying that it's creating too much pressure for the lower side. How many main lines are going that are creating too much pressure for that lower side? So, do we know by chance?
I was gonna say, basically, it's not so much how many lines are on the high pressure side. It's basically because of our topography and the way that the water lines run through town.
Okay.
So, to go back to that, basically, when you have the wells, the two on Meyer Road, we'll use them as the example, because one borders this and one almost does. You're pushing you're attempting to push all of that water out to satisfy the reservoir, because that's what turns it on and off. It runs off the level of the reservoir. And if you add those looped lines, looping like the back end of Bakel, you know, up Rio Grande with the 12-inch and then the 24-inch along Hiawatha running north to south,
Yeah.
that would alleviate the efficiency issues with those pumps. They would be able to pump more water, and then you would be able to get more stable pressure by doing that.
You guys are talking about, it's not completed yet, you know, as far as what's done. I mean, can pressure reducing valves be set on those main lines to reduce the lower side of the pressure because of the way the topography is? To try to decrease the pressure without pushing more water out, feel like?
They can be. The thing is that when you have your peak demand, you know, you want to be able to have those pressure reducing valves open all the way, and pressure reducing valves that are on, you know, larger mains are very expensive. And that's part of the reason that we're doing the master plan study too as well, is to, you know, identify what can be done to equalize pressure, what can be done to satisfy storage issues, and things like that.
Yeah, that was my concern, is once that gets there, is the cost of trying to create a
Right.
you know,
And-
pressure reducing system, that people don't realize that the cost of that is astronomical to reduce those down. So even if we were to reduce those down, we create that loop, that still doesn't help with the pressure.
Right, and that's part of the reason, I mean, water systems are required by IDAPA to run between 40 and 80 PSI, and that's why it's such a wide range, just because, you know, it's almost impossible to design a system where you have 60 PSI all the time, because if half of the population turns their faucet on at the same time, we don't have the capacity for it.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any more questions for Public Works or? Alrighty, we will now have the members of the public. You have the opportunity to testify, and we'll start with those in favor. So we have Maggie Lyons, if you'd like to come up and testify. Let's see.
My name is Maggie Lyons. Maggie Lyons. I live in Hayden Lake, Idaho, and I am the Executive Director for Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance. So good evening. Thank you for having me here. Affordable housing is one of the most misunderstood and misused terms in public policy. I'm here today to talk to you about housing our local workers can afford to buy. No one wants unchecked growth. What we need is smart, long-term investment in homes, the kind that keeps young families here and able to work in the communities that they serve. Right now in Kootenai County, homeownership is out of reach for most of our middle class or middle income workers. Yet the data tells us 70% want to own their home. They are two income households. So for example, one is earning $60,000, one is earning $40,000. Those are wages.
Excuse me, can the audience please be quiet when a speaker is speaking? Thank you.
And together, their combined income is what is Kootenai County's area median income, which is a combined household income of about $100,000. They're trying to raise their families, they want to build stability, and they want to stay in the community that they love. But really the math no longer works. Land, construction costs, and regulatory costs have made it impossible for builders to build starter single-family homes at prices our local workers can afford. And when that happens, we lose our middle class, the very people who keep our cities running. Cities can't solve this problem alone. Builders can't solve it either alone, but you can do it together. That's why I'm so excited about the opportunities that Hayden Homes is presenting here. When cities and builders work to reduce the costs that drive up home prices, these savings can go directly to reduce the prices of homes. And through Britain's shared equity model, which I'm going to explain to you, these homes stay forever affordable for that working household income. We have built and are in the middle right now of building a 28 neighborhood single family residences for local workers. As a nonprofit, we had to raise about $1.1 million in order to get our true costs down to prices where we could sell these homes to local workers. And these are on smaller lots. These are on 5,000 square foot lots. So Britain's results have been remarkable. Who are our home buyers? Let me tell you just a few. We have a Lakeland school teacher. We have a firefighter. We have a sheriff's deputy. We have 2 nurses, an electrician, a welder, a physical therapist, a banker, an office manager, an assembly technician, a mechanic, an IT specialist, a graphic designer, 2 small business owners, and a stay-at-home mom. And this is just a few.
Can I pause you for one moment? Because, are you representing your organization, or are you just coming to testify for your?
I'm just giving you some background to get to.
But the question is because if you're here just testifying on your own behalf, you get 3 minutes. But if you're testifying on behalf, it says that in the packet online that she gets a longer amount of time?
Kind of, if, I don't know, whatever you want to do.
That's my question, is if you were coming, are you speaking on behalf of the affordable housing, or are you testifying just on your own behalf? Because you'd get a little bit more time if you were testifying on behalf of the organization you referenced at the very beginning.
Well, it's the organization, because we're partnering with Hayden Homes too.
Okay, so you are representing the organization?
I am.
Okay, so you'll get some more time. But, okay, sorry. I just wanted to clarify that, so thank you. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry for interrupting
No,
you.
that's
I just wanted to
okay.
make sure
That's
I
okay.
understood.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that very
Yeah.
much. So we really have the workforce that's coming to these homes, and we knew we would, but we've gone vertical and we have the homes built now. And they've been raised in Kootenai County. They love this community and they want to stay here. And most have been looking outside the area because they want to own a home and they can't afford to buy one here. So every home in Britain must be owner occupied. They are priced for a specific income range, and every home is protected by a resale formula that allows wealth creation through equity build, but that initial discount in the home price will always be protected and preserved. So every time the home sells, it will always be below market. The Britain model we know works, and it can be replicated and scaled when cities and builders choose to work together to make it possible. And that's what's so remarkable about Hayden Homes. They've built for middle-income families for years, but today's costs have made that nearly impossible. Yet they are willing to commit 5% of this development to the Britain model, deed restricted, with preference given to the Lakeland School District employees. These will be on large lots, 6,500 square feet. That is really tough to do. But they want to do it because it's their mission and because they understand the need for local workers to live where they work. This is rare. I've dealt with a lot of builders who won't touch this because they won't take the discount. They won't take the sacrifice. But this is leadership by Hayden Homes to do this. And I think the partnership with the city of Rathdrum is golden opportunity to demonstrate that this can be done. By approving this preliminary plat, you'll send a powerful message that Rathdrum is investing in its local workers. You're standing up for working families who can't be here tonight because they're working or they're home with their kids. Did I mention that in Britain, we have lots and lots of children, brand new babies all the way up to grade school in our families that are buying these homes. So I guess in closing, we have worked so hard with developer builders to understand this potential. And we've met with cities, right, to talk about this potential. And this would truly be a breaking ground opportunity to prove that it can be done. So I urge approval of the plat. Thank you.
All right, so we have two individuals for public comment that did not put in favor, opposition, or neutral. And the, let's see here, Lois Sales, are you for or against, or, okay, so I'll put that over here. And then we also have, let's see, Randy Sales. Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, so I'll go ahead, we'll have Lois Sales. Would you like to please state your name and your address for the record?
Okay, should I come up here?
Yeah.
So sales, 5635 Quail Ridge Street, Rathdrum. I want to talk lot sizes. At the April 9th City Council meeting, Hayden Homes said they would be willing to put the larger R1 lots at the bottom of the development, close to Corbin Crossing. They have not done that. You look at that map that they have, it's scattered all over. And they've mixed the R1, R2, and R3 homes all together. I would personally love to see all the R3s at the northern end of the development. I would be willing to just have the homes right behind Quail Ridge, all R1. And I'd like to address these homes where we live, are in the 6th addition to the ranch at Corbin Crossing. That is Quail Ridge, Axle, Tender, and Freight Train are all R1 lots, and most are 1/3 acre, which makes them over 14,000 square feet. The Rathdrum zoning map has all of Corbin Crossing R3. That is incorrect. A 1/3 acre lot, they are all R1, period. I don't care what's on any zoning map. On the Hayden plat, there are 19 lots that back up to Quail Ridge Street. And that includes 4 lots that back onto Hiawatha, just to the side of Quail Ridge. Of those, there are 5 R3 lots. Those lots are 6,500 square feet. 2 of the lots together make 12,000 square feet. To allow these small lots would devalue our homes. That whole thing along east of Railway, along Quail Ridge Street. It devalue our homes. We paid over $600K for our home. We put $100K in improvements into it. And you want to put these R3 lots behind our house? I propose that we remove all those 5 and those 2 along Hiawatha. Remove them from behind our houses and combine or merge them with the other lots and make all of those 19 lots R1. I think we deserve it. From the way everything was handled with Hayden Homes, we all have a bad taste in our mouth. I think we deserve to have some consideration.
Okay, Randy Sales.
We know each other. So Randy Sales, I live at 5635 West Quail Ridge Street. So I'm against this partly because of what Lois said, but also we bought our home in the extreme northeast corner of the existing development, just south of the new development about 2 years ago. So we've had open fields to our north and to our east, making us feel like we live in the country. And when we bought the house, we knew that that probably wasn't gonna last forever. But we feel like we've been fortunate and we're pretty thankful. One of the benefits of the open field to the north is that we have the ability to access a 15-foot gate that came with the house on the north end of the house, north end of the lot. We've even been able to have dump trucks deliver dirt, through dirt and wood through that back gate. Our neighbor doesn't even have a fence in their back, and they built a pretty large property. They had cement trucks come in and so forth. So basically, by having this development built, we're losing access to the back of our property that's been there for as long as we've had the house. We were hoping that, given that loss of access, that Hayden would consider building a new equivalent gate on the east side of our property. A quick estimate by a friend who's in the construction business put the cost at between $10,000 and $15,000 for such a gate, based on the road access, drainage, city and HOA approval, and everything else. So in spite of everything that's been said here, previous meetings have made it pretty clear that this is proceeding at the disapproval of the community, and it is leaving a bad taste. So I'm hoping that Hayden and the city will consider this kind of request along with the other neighborhood requests that would kind of ease the acceptance of this effort. So, thank you.
All right. And we have Peggy, is it Peggy Gunther?
It is
All
correct.
right, thank you. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. Yours was neutral.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
And I should have had you go next, so I'm so
That's
sorry
fine.
it got caught in the mix, but you can come now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
So my name is Peggy Gunther. I live at 6023 West Quail Ridge Street. I was probably one of the first homeowners in Corbin Crossing, so I got to see all the construction of the other homes. So I've been there almost 10 years. And so I'm not for or against, but I'm like this. My property has no fence, and I am against the prairie. I see the mountain, and I don't want a house back there, A fence, of course, that would be nice, but I lose that. And so having that consideration, I got a small lot because I'm a single person owner, and so I work 4 jobs to be able to have my home. And I got a small lot because that's what I could afford at the time, but I enjoy having that extra piece of property back there. And so any consideration in that, I come here today to see how this was going to affect my home and my wonderful view. So, but anyway, thank you.
Awesome. All right. We now have Laura Fuller.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Laura Fuller, 6201 Trestle Street. I was looking over the plans for this subdivision, and one thing that immediately stood out was the lack of a park or true common green space where people can gather. There are a few small patches of green shown, but according to the map, they're actually drainage areas, not spaces where residents can comfortably sit, walk, or enjoy a public area together. Parks and common open spaces aren't just afterthoughts. They're an essential part of Rathdrum's comprehensive plan. Here's what that plan says, word for word, about those goals and objectives. Promote a sense of community by providing ready access to shared green space and parks. Promote a sense of a connected, integrated community through the use of green space. Provide green belts, corridors, parks, recreation, and open space areas and strategic areas that allow for a sense of unique community identity. Promote the development of healthy neighborhoods which incorporate central open spaces. Incorporate accessible shared open spaces and park areas for use by residents in all neighborhoods. increase densities in balance with the provision of natural open space, public space, and other design considerations further benefiting community design goals and policies. Our comprehensive plan is meant to be the baseline standard by which development proposals are judged. Let's use it to guide growth in a way that strengthens the quality of life in new neighborhoods, especially in large subdivisions like this one. While I understand that the developer was not required to include a park during the rezone stage, as members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, you do have the ability to review and recommend conditions or contingencies for approval on a preliminary plat as outlined in Rathdrum City Code Section 12.3. Those recommendations then go to the City Council for consideration and can become part of the final approval if the applicant agrees. And because the City Council does not hold a public hearing on subdivision plats, your role here is especially important. You are the only ones who hear the public input spoken directly right now on these decisions. I respectfully ask you to consider approving this plat contingent on the addition of a small park or public green space. It could be maintained through the developer's HOA or by the city, depending on what's appropriate. Doing so would align directly with Rathdrum's comprehensive plan and ensure that this new neighborhood reflects the kind of community identity, connectivity, and livability that our city has committed to in its vision of growth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and now we have Stacy O'Connell.
Hello, my name is Stacy O'Connell at 20908 North Highway 41, Rathdrum. So I had my speech ready here, but we went along the same lines, so I'm not gonna regurgitate what she said, but I will say a few things. But as per the city code, this meeting is the only opportunity for Rathdrum residents to voice their concerns regarding the Hayden Aristad development. When it's presented at the city council meeting, our voices will be silenced. Therefore, your input is our sole means of communication with the city council. We're counting on you to be our voice. As she was saying, the Aristad development does not adhere to the comprehensive plan in terms of green space. You look at the track of 436 homes in the color-coded map, you see some green area, but it says it's common track for additional drainage areas. We're supposed to be providing areas of open space for social gathering, biking, walking, outdoor recreation. This is all in the comprehensive plan, page 20, 22, 28, 29. And there's nothing in there. There's no parks, no open spaces, no pathway. And like she said, a park could easily be part of the HOA, or maybe the city can take it on. I urge the commission to propose green spaces throughout the community to align with the comprehensive plan, thereby fostering a community that we can all be proud of. I would like clarification on the number of exits from this community. There are currently 2 exits, both of which lead to Meyer Road. Will Railway and Hiawatha area extend to Bakel as an exit? Can it be considered an exit if it's going through an industrial area? My concern is a fire affecting 436 homes with about 800 to 1,600 residents trying to evacuate. By prioritizing safety, proposing green spaces, and ensuring sufficient exits, we can ensure the well-being of our community. I would really appreciate if you would take that into consideration. In regards, I think it's great about Hayden Homes offering 5%, but if you look at that, that's 21 homes out of 436. It's great that they offer 5%, but it isn't like they're doing something wonderful and we have to bend over and do everything for them. This is our community. Our comprehensive plan talks about green spaces, and there's nothing in there for that. They have left a bad taste in our mouth for the way it's been handled this whole process, but I appreciate consideration of what I stated. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to speak that has not had the opportunity that would like to? Okay. Does she need to fill out a paper and bring it up here? Okay. Can you fill out a paper and bring it up.
She could probably speak and then fill it out.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine,
To
yeah.
speed stuff
But
up.
definitely, state your name and address, and then that's a good idea.
Yes. My name is Bridgette Mastropolo, and I'm at 12775 North Farley Way. The first thing that I have to say is thank you so much for listening to all of us and really digesting the information that's been given to you today and looking outside the box of the things that might be missing. Because that's the one thing that I think our council members of our city need to be doing. They need to be looking at everything and how it's going to affect us, the people that live here. You are our voice, and that is the biggest thing that you can do for us, and knowing that we're being heard, it means a lot. As far as some of the things that they've gone over, obviously safety is a huge issue. The traffic is a major issue. I don't care what anybody says. There's been so many more accidents over the last 1.5, 2 years than I've ever seen since the time I've moved here. It's an issue. Safety is a huge issue when it comes to water and resources. I understand that they have an idea of what's happening, but if something happens at those high peak seasons and there's a fire and we don't have the water to actually have the pressure to put the fire out, or if there's a disaster and we can't get out of where we live, that is a safety issue that's been brought up to the council and the city council every single time we talk about these. You know, the fact that we're having to talk about water and then you guys are telling us, oh, we have the water. Well, we don't, because when you're trying to take a shower early in the morning, there is zero water to use, and you can't take a shower to go to work or to bathe your child or whatever it might be. So, you know, being here as a resident, being told by people that we don't know what we're talking about when we're living it day in and day out is rather frustrating. As far as the developers go, they build homes super fast. My home was built under 6 months. I had several issues with my home, and every single one of them was addressed at my walkthrough. None of them got done, and I had to have another, inspector come through, and he told me nothing had happened. So these issues are happening with these developers. They're developing so fast that they can't even go back and fix the issues that are happening while they're developing them. And then what happens if somebody's house catches on fire because they made the wrong mistake? They're going super fast. They're not taking into accountability our safety on the roads, in our own homes, our water usage, any of it. They don't care. They're just here to make money. They want to develop as many as they possibly can, and that's it. They don't care about us. Once they're done with us, they'll leave and find another place to develop. They don't truly care about our community, only we do. We are the ones that care. Just like what happened in frickin' California, just like what happened in Hawaii, if we are not protecting ourselves, nobody else will. No one will. I'd hate to see that happen again here. Thank you.
Alright, so now, if the applicant, if you would like to speak to rebuttal.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm gonna go through some of the questions and comments that have been raised and do some clarification. Of course, if you need other questions, feel free to do that, and we can also, between myself and James. I also did take the chance while others were talking to double check Commissioner Metzgar some of your questions. So I'm gonna start there. So on the pace of homes, we talked about the phases and when they would occur. I did verify that we usually do about 4 to 6 starts a month within a phase. We start our next phase when all the lots are sold on the first phase. So we're not jumping way ahead so that we have ability to surge it up and pace based upon what's happening in the market. So I wanted to answer that. The second part that I wanted to clarify that you both were asking about was the rear lots and how far forward in the lot the properties would be. So most of the lots are that 116 depth. Some vary. If you're on an internal curve, you're gonna have, longer because it's shorter up front. So in general, with 116 feet, there is a 25-foot to garage requirement. What I did is I looked up and said, how deep are our home products? They range between 45 to 62 feet deep. So subtracting that, what we'll end up with is, regardless of the rear setback, somewhere between at a minimum of 29 to 46 feet before you ever hit the rear of a lot. So 20 feet is the rear setback for commercial. Residential is a 15-foot setback. We're greatly exceeding, actually over double at the longest of our homes from what that setback requirement by city code is. Let's see. I do want to address the R3 mix lot to the south of Corbin Crossing. And the public who testified is absolutely right. Hayden Homes did, in our April presentation and our first discussions of where lots would be located, said we wanted to put the R1s up against those existing lots. And in many of our developments, when we're designing them, we try to buffer and transition from existing lots that are larger and use larger lots. City council mandated, and it's in the development agreement, that not only overall it has to be a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 to meet city code, they wanted within each phase to have that happen, which means they were clear also, we can't just do an entire row of R1s and an entire row of R2s. The phases are in that 29 to 56 houses per time. We've tried to make some adjustments there, and we actually have been trying on our technical corrections on the southeast side where there are larger lots to do some lot line adjustments between them. But we have to maintain those balances, and we also have to maintain them in each phase. So we're relatively limited, actually a lot limited, on being able to address that. We will be fencing the developments, and as we've mentioned, you're looking at 29 to 46 feet of backyards. Those are pretty decent sized backyards compared to the lot size. All right. I also want to address in terms of the lot design itself, exits. There is an exit that is planned that will go north up through the industrial so that you have that connectivity. All the exits are going to be governed by and have been designed to at least meet International Fire Code. So that's something that's just required of how many exits and entrances you have. And they're built based upon how you phase that. So once you get over, I believe it's 29 homes, you have to have a second exit. So it's completely code driven, and this exceeds those.
Can I hop in right there? The neighborhood around Majestic Park currently has 4 exits, and that will increase to 6 when the Hiawatha and Railway are extended. 6, so it will increase the number of exits out of the existing neighborhood, and the proposed exits in the new neighborhood exceed the amount that are there in the existing neighborhood now.
Yeah, and Madam Chair and Commissioner, in addition to what staff is saying, on the rezone, not only do we have the 1/3, 1/3, and then the 1/3 in each phase, the zoning of what the density could be overall in that area has already been set. That was our first application process and first vetting. It actually has enough within its zoning to have a density of way more than 436 units. Because we went through and added some of those provisions for open space, added additional buffering, you're actually seeing less units overall, but still maintaining the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and within each phase. So it was actually already entitled to the density that is there. Can we put up, James, the color picture of the plat that has the phases in it? Maybe?
So a quick question, that phase 1 through 5, does that allow that road to be built through the industrial as the next exit once phase 5 is being completed?
I believe that we have it being built in a minimum between phases 5 and 6. Okay. Now, if industrial development, there's phasing that's required in the DA. If that gets built sooner, we may have to have that second exit sooner, because there's also requirements under industrial.
That's yeah.
But it is phased.
I'm not having luck with this thing today.
All right, well, I'll talk to it, and then as we're picking up the pictures, just so we can see it visually. Thank you. I definitely should have brought additional resources. There was testimony about open space being used as drainage. The only that is an individual drainage facility is in the northwest corner of the plat that's listed. The others are, there are 2 neighborhood parks that are in here that are gonna be like the top lots with amenities. And in addition, what you have going in the middle of Hiawatha from north to south is essentially a linear park. It's adding that additional buffer and pathway on each side that provides additional connectivity to the city parks that are to the south. So you already have those, and then in addition, going from east to west, from the center of Hiawatha, going east, you see there's also, again, a bit of a linear pathway to be able to get people from that phase 8 and phase 9 back into that pathway in the center, back into Hiawatha, without having to go all the way around on streets. So it's intentionally built with those additional green spaces that are able to be accessed for pedestrians, and then the center pathway that's be able to pedestrians and bikes. I also would just note that we are compliant with the comprehensive plan that had to be done at the time of rezone. Even the plat, you've got a city staff chart that is also posted on the website that goes through the analysis of consistency with the comprehensive plan. Hayden Homes is wanting to build this development where people are gonna live and they're gonna be happy. We're not gonna build a development that does not have those types of amenities that people are wanting. That's why you see that kind of connectivity and green space that is here. As of now, the city does not have an open space or green space requirement. So these are things that actually exceed because there is no requirement. It was important to us to have that pathway buffer.
And also due to its proximity to Majestic Park, which is a community park, the park's master plan does not call nor require an additional park in this location.
And really, that was part of what I was bringing up, the point about having that connectivity of the pathways coming from north to south, is you get additional access, not just for people that will be living within our development, is as you attend to people that want to get up and maybe pedestrian and bike up to Bagel, or want to come through the development. It doesn't always have to be by vehicle. And it does get you access to that park that exists too. All right, a couple of other things, let me kind of check. We talked about pace, we talked about the setbacks, the lot mix, and kind of our parameters that are already identified to, and what was council directed, as well as density. We talked about the exits. I would stop and talk about water. The technical evaluation that's coming from the city engineer is clear that for this site, there is water pressure and water availability. I think the public works director did a great job of explaining it in the terms of, it depends on what part of the city you're in. Areas that are already having water pressure very well may actually get that improved by when this goes in and all of our improvements to the water line, because you're getting that looping and you're normalizing the pressure. We're also right next to those wells. So by using that and using that well pressure in the center, that is not, whether this development goes in or not, it would not be, it's not gonna change the fact that you have issues that you're gonna have to deal with on the sides of your town. If anything, it's only gonna improve that by the looping process. And what we have to deal with here is really the site-specific conditions and what is required, and it is. I do wanna take a minute and address traffic. I appreciate Commissioner and staff's conversation that traffic is not a criteria, and it wasn't listed. However, back in December, when we came to you guys a year ago, it was a big concern at the time that it was needing to be addressed, right? About before we commit to the density, which now has been entitled, what's that gonna mean for traffic? I would give a bit of a disclosure that I'm a recovering transportation planner from a lot of years at a countywide highway district. So traffic impact statements and studies can be really bears to work through. The way that I try to explain it and look at it is you have what your current traffic conditions are, existing, current. Sometimes you're gonna have existing deficiencies that regardless of whether development changes, you already have existing deficiencies. What a traffic impact study does in the purest is it's gonna take what are the projected improvements, right? What's already planned to be improved. For example, the intersection at Nagel and Meyer. Just got it backwards.
That's one.
Okay, the intersection that's already programmed, that Hayden Homes has said, but we will also contribute to, is an existing deficiency. There's no requirement and does not come up in the traffic impact study because it's already a problem. And it already doesn't meet the required or accepted level of service. So when you were speaking about KMPO, the Regional Transportation Plan, which covers the entire county, already has programmed projects at different times based upon those already existing deficiencies. A transportation or traffic improvement plan actually looks at that background traffic, existing how it is. It actually factors in expected kind of a general growth pattern, which they do based upon actual demographics. What's already programmed, which is usually away from these sites. KMPO's projects are only gonna be on arterials, maybe a major collector, but not one where there's not a lot of funding, or on highways. So they're looking at major regionally significant projects. The traffic impact study looks at all that. It says, when's it already programmed? What's the existing deficiency? Then it looks and it says, all right, we're gonna look and see with this many units, and remember it was actually done, the traffic impact study was actually done for even more. What would be the trips that could be caused by this? And there's a very technical formula that tells you how you have to calculate that. It then tells you, when do you trip it, right? So what impact does this development itself start tripping or is projected to trip intersections or roadways that are going to go from what currently is within the accepted level of service to not in the accepted level of service? That delta is what developers have to improve or pay for. That is part of a traffic impact study, a traffic impacts fees, but more importantly, that's where in your development agreement, Hayden Homes is already committed to all of that. So as much as we said traffic sometimes gets talked about at preliminary plat, in retrospect, Hayden Homes is very glad we had that conversation because that stuff takes time. And at your recommendation and concerns, all that traffic impact study was done and it walks through every one of those steps that you were asking about. And it illustrates we are committed to doing that because it does matter. We're not trying to minimize people's concerns around traffic. We know how long it takes to get places. But the only thing developers can do is to be able to mitigate when it trips over that. If you don't have these developments going in, your only source of funding for it is your existing capital improvements funds that are coming from taxes or your regional transportation projects, which are very competitive and hard to get to towns like Rathdrum. There's some programs, right? And there's some program through the city. But the way to get those improvements is the developers are paying it for what they're tripping. It's essentially the delta. And so all those deltas of what we say when they're tripped are all spelled out by that technical analysis, including how many trips do you even guess for. I wanted to take that time because traffic is a big issue. And we want to be able to say this is how it's addressed. And there's a very detailed memo that addresses it all. And we've contractually agreed to all of that. So while not a criteria, it is important for you and the public to know that all of those things about public infrastructure are tight and have been dealt with. We're meeting all those code requirements. So I'm going to stop because I covered the issues that came up. See if you have other questions that you'd like me to address, and then I can summarize.
Do you know the estimated cost savings for the roadways, you guys doing it versus the city if it has to get pushed off the taxpayers?
I wish I knew that. Mayor and Commissioners, it really depends. There usually is a benefit, right, because your procurement and contracting times can be quicker. I would also say that even if a developer builds, in this case we're talking about building the improvements, but for the intersection itself, sometimes you can do payment in lieu of. So sometimes, let's say the development comes in to our east. They may not be contributing enough to actually, if it was a smaller division, to actually trip an entire improvement, but they can contribute to the city for when it is done. So in some counties, like the one I worked in for 8 years, the developers rarely build the improvements themselves. They're contributing, and then when there's enough funds, the city or county or highway district matches that and gets the project done. In this case, you have us saying, as we're chipping that, we're gonna build it, right? Because there's not as many resources to be able to like wait around for the whole thing to be done. So we actually went and just said, these are exactly what needs to happen. But I would hope it would be a lot, but it just depends on what happens with the market. I can tell you in Spokane County and Washington with prevailing wages, it's a lot of a difference whether it's done private or public.
Greg, at the City Hall site, Radcliffe is being extended from Radiant Lake to Lancaster. The estimate that we got was double what the private party.
I was just making people in the audience aware. I mean, I work construction. Anytime you get into private sector versus city, the cost is significantly higher, especially the taxpayers.
Especially, Commissioner, with mobilization, right? If we can mobilize it and do those at the same time that sewer and water's being done, you're not tearing things up. You know, you get that kind of synergy of when things are being constructed.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that they're constructed at the right times and that people don't feel like we're getting even more jammed up in this area.
Right.
As you know,
Yeah,
the Commissioner
and,
talked about. So.
yeah, and Commissioners, that's why I went through that kind of how a TIS works, because it is a very, very long document. It actually has those trigger points based upon the number of trips when those things happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think though, what I was trying to refer to is that if you contact the city of Hayden or if you contact the city of Post Falls or KMPO, they will tell you that all those major intersections where everybody's having problems at, there's plans for every single one of those intersections within the first 1 to 3 years. Yeah.
We talked to Kevin, he
Yeah.
can show it to you, which.
Yeah, but I think that's a
extension of Main
major
Street's been
concern
open
for
30
people,
years.
you know, because people are like looking at like, those are the major areas where we're having problems, but every single one of those intersections, they have plans for those within the next 1 to 3 years, 5 years. You know, so it's wiggle room because rough estimates, but there are plans for every single one of those intersections. And I think that's really important because that is where most of the traffic problems are having. Now, obviously, in this report, it was saying that it was below level of D from the city's standards, but it sounds also that there's remedies in the works that are built into this plat to take care of that. And
So-
to do it at a rate as the phases are coming, to be able to, so that it's not like all of a sudden you have all these homes and then you're still having to take care of these roadway issues. So it sounds like they're going to be in alignment with one another.
Yes, and Madam Chair and Commissioners of the public, I think an important part of that too is when you're talking about projects, especially on those arterials, the highways, the city's capital improvement plan, they're based upon those existing efficiencies. So those aren't related to whether there's development or not.
Right.
What we wanna make sure that we're responsible for is we're not gonna contribute more to it without mitigating that. And it's got that technical backup. And in fact, we're actually also contributing 10% or $150,000 to an intersection that already is existing deficiency. It's not even tied to our project, because we too wanna make sure that it gets done soon. I don't know if that helps answer a bit, but I wanted just to kind of slow it down a bit around traffic.
Right. Thank you.
Other questions? Did I address the rear setbacks and
You did.
your questions about
The-
pace?
the-
Pace?
The green spaces, I guess, you're talking in the northwest corner. That's gonna be the only drainage area you're saying?
It's the only that's identified as just a drainage area.
Okay.
A lot of times open space also acts as drainage because you're percolating through that. We have different treatments of the water throughout it. That's the only one that's specifically that. But you can see there are two other, I kind of call them pocket parks. These are actually bigger than traditional pocket parks or tot lots.
How many square feet are those that he's on right now?
Can you give me an estimate?
No.
Oh, do you want your plans to give me an estimate? So while Cole's looking that up, again, it's a little hard to see on this unless you zoom in, but your staff referenced it. The linear pathway that goes along the projection of north to south is actually also considered open space. We're not including any open space of frontage improvements along the major roadways. A lot of times when cities do that, in terms of their code, they'll let you count a certain part of that. We're not doing any of those things. And then you also see that kind of open space that almost looks like a bit of a arrow, I guess, coming from where it says phase 3 open space over to the open space in phase 7, is we've connected that through as open space so you could be able to have that pedestrian pathway. So we feel like it helps utilization.
So they're essentially just drainage areas covered by green area. I mean, from swales and everything else to help mitigate water.
So commissioners, not exactly. So the only one that we're considering a drainage space is up in that northwest. The others truly are programmed park areas. All we're saying is that based upon the type of surface you put in, they also can assist with drainage. They have to be in their own tracks because that's the way the city code reads, so we have to put them out separately. But that is different in terms of like they will be programmed. There would be, for example, playground equipment or the outdoor fitness equipments and the park benches. We have that space to be able to do that as well as programming along that linear pathways, which from our experience and from planning documents, they actually get used more when it's an active version of open space, not just a stagnant open space that might be used by the few homes that are there. And so we've really tried to connect them both north, south, and east, west along that area. So they're not just drainage, they are programmed park space.
But you can build the parks on them that are being, and they're gonna
Right.
be small,
You
I
can get a
understand.
dual use, yes,
So,
I could also just add,
only to the mic.
sorry, all these city streets are gonna have roadside ditches, swales that will adjust a lot of the drainage. So the intent here is hopefully, we don't have 100% storm drainage calcs today, but we've done a lot of modeling to evaluate that and talking with Kevin Jumper, your guys' city engineer, about that to understand what's required. All of these roadways will be right-of-way dedicated to the city, and they have programmed roadside swales. So that's the intent, is to have a lot of the drainage going into these roadside swales. So hopefully all of these green spaces here that you see would be parks or other amenities that Hayden Homes can kind of speak to. The low point in the site we do see is in that northwest corner. So there's a couple avenues that we have kind of set in place, like railway down the middle that doesn't have any driveways. Those will be continuous swales. So we'll make sure we have adequate storm drainage throughout this, on these some, side lots or other areas to make sure we have enough of this drainage. But those green spaces, right now to date, they're not programmed to be swales or drainage. You know, hopefully those will be just amenities. But again, we don't have those 100% calcs today, so that's our current plan.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner, the only thing else I would add with that, primarily for the public, is those calculations in stormwater gets finalized as we submit construction drawings and before final plat, so that if there's areas that we have to adjust, you're still substantially compliant with your preliminary plat, and you have to change those calculations. You also see that buffer that's between residential and industrial. That was intentional. It's shown here as 40 feet, both to buffer the use, but again, it gives us some space that if we have to do something different in terms of when those calculations come for construction drawings, we can. Okay. So one of the areas, and I'm only looking at the two squares, is about 12,000 square feet. The other's about over 17,000. And then you can see it probably is 4 to 5, well, probably closer to 10 to 12,000, just in some of those strips that go from east to west. So we'd have to do the full calculation. We didn't do that. The city code doesn't have standards for numbers, but it's going to increase from there. So they're 17,000, so at least a third acre of a pocket park. That's about what we normally see. I think a subdivision that I live in, which was a Hayden Homes developed about 6 or 7 years ago, it has a pocket park that's less than a quarter acre. It's like about the size of a lot.
Yeah, I think it's
So
quarter.
this is, these are, both of those are bigger than any of the other lot sizes that I can see, except for maybe a corner. I think we have one wedge lot that's close. That gives you, I guess, a ballpark, because it's hard to tell without. And for the record, he did that on paper. It did not pull up a cell phone. That's way better than I could do. Are there other questions, Madam Chair, Commissioners? Okay. All right, I guess I would just finalize and say, you know, Hayden Homes has been committed to working through this, making sure that we have the technical evaluation done, and that all of those provisions are in a contractual document that agrees to what we're doing, and that we're meeting those criteria. So we would ask for a recommendation of approval of the plat, but in compliance with that development agreement and all city codes. We're not doing any deviations. We've taken the extra time to make sure that we can address the issues that, you know, our residents are also going to be concerned about. We've been in this community. We're going to continue to be in this community. This isn't a short-term investment. It's also not a new investment. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, the public hearing is now closed. All right. Do either of you have a motion that you would like to make, or? Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Pulling up the packet. There we go.
Here it is.
Yeah, these are the potential motions that you can make.
Yeah, that was, or 2 or 3. I don't know what condition, but there would be another. So you would want this as,
We're not able to hear
the
Oh, yeah.
condition would be what?
For the water.
Would you like them to speak louder?
Yeah.
Okay, make sure you speak louder.
Sorry, all the deliberation.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's fine.
Everything's for the public, so.
Okay, so I was just basing, maybe a condition on, you know, the water being completed before moving through, make sure the engineering and make sure, because that's still under review, correct, for the water side of it?
Not really. The preliminary plat will get approved, then they'll turn in construction drawings for review, and then it'll get built according to the construction drawings.
Okay.
So we're not really there yet.
Okay.
That review will happen.
Okay, so I wasn't here for the one before, that's why I wasn't sure. That's why I told you I got confused on the line set for there, so.
No, everything will get reviewed before it's constructed, inspected during construction.
Perfect. And that would be based on the final plat when that gets submitted?
No, the final plat is submitted after the things are constructed. Right, preliminary plat approves the construction, and construction drawings come in, those are reviewed, approved, and then construction happens. And then once everything is there, that's supposed to be done according to the preliminary plat, they submit for final plat.
Because I'm the chair, it's best to let everyone know.
Okay. Well, I guess that I will move to recommend the city council that the proposal be approved with the recommended condition of approval as found within the staff report dated November 6th, finding that it is in accord with the City of Rathdrum Comprehensive Plan and Rathdrum City Code as conditioned. I further move that the Planning and Zoning Administrator provide a written report to the council as soon as possible and include the recommendations of this commission and the facts that provide a basis for decision. I think everything was pretty much covered and addressed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Nina?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Great,
Aye.
thank you.
Motion passes. All right, we now have the opportunity for the visitors' comments to address concerns, no formal action allowed, 3-minute time limit per issue. Issues may be placed on a subsequent agenda. No public comments may be made on land use items. Land use items include any item relating to a specific land use application or process that is governed by state code. Commission may place a topic on subsequent agenda for future discussion and consideration. Comments regarding performance by city employees are inappropriate this time and should be directed to the mayor. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to give a visitor's comment? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Okay, I
Thank-
second.
All in favor?
Aye. Let's go. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Oh, she forgot one. Give that to me.